And welcome to the Cardinals Nest on HBC Channel 25. I'm Dean Beckman, joined by Sports Information Director Donny Nadeau and men's hockey coach Bill Moore. Men's hockey will be the focus of today's show. A little bit later on, we'll recap the previous week in St. Mary's athletics. But right now, the focus is on men's hockey. This is the weekend it gets started, and I guess appropriately enough, the weather is turning colder, feeling, Bill, a little bit more like hockey season, isn't it? You're probably glad to see this cold snap come in.
I am, and it's kind of ironic because a couple of weeks ago I was up in Edmonton on a recruiting trip and it was snowing and 35 degrees, and I put on my Facebook page that finally hockey season's here, but now we got it at home here as well.
You know, talk a little bit about the preparation here. You guys started on the 15th of October, so really about 2 weeks of preparation before this weekend's MIAC showcase. You got to cram a lot of stuff into those 2 weeks. How have things been going so far?
Well, it's been going really well, but in all reality, we really only have 1 week to prepare for it because we've got to have a week of tryouts. So you start out with that first week, and you've got guys that have no chance at all of being on varsity still with the guys. So you can't work on your power play, you can't work on your penalty kill. You know, you can throw a few systems and things in there, but until tryouts are over, you really don't have the caliber of players that we're going to be playing against this weekend in the showcase. So we really started practice on Monday of this week, and we've got basically 4 days to prepare before the weekend showcase, but we're very excited. It's nice having a lot of returners back, so there isn't quite as much preparation as it would have been as we've had in the last 2 years with the younger players.
When you talk about a lot of returners, you graduated four seniors last year. You returned 16 juniors on your roster this year. That's got to help in terms of just having that experience, knowing you for a couple of years now and your approach to the game. But that's a big, big class of players.
It is, and at that time we needed to do that to get the program in the direction that I wanted to take it. And we're very excited now. We've had to live with a few of the mistakes that younger players will make in the last 2 years. Cost us some games in the 1-goal games last year, but we're hoping that everything is better now with the fact that they've got a lot of experience. At least this way, we can't use experience as a crutch anymore. It's time to put up or shut up.
Well, Bill, you talked about the 1-goal games, and that was a theme Donny and I touched on routinely on last year's Cardinals Nest. But it wasn't just 1-goal games. 20 of your 25 contests ended in 2 goals or less. So sometimes it was 1, sometimes it was 2. But you know that's a bounce of the puck here, a shot there.
Could even be an empty netter.
Yeah, exactly. So the margin of error in those kinds of games very, very slim, isn't it?
Correct, and I think that's the whole thing we hope is corrected by having those 16 sophomores now become 16 juniors. Plus, we've had a good recruiting class. We're very excited. We have 3 freshman defensemen in our top 6 right now. So we're very excited about this year as well as next year in the future.
Let's try and break down the team a little bit position by position. Starting in goal, a couple of returners, very veteran in seniors, Jason Horstman and Andy Scheib, and then you've got a couple of other people, a couple of freshmen who are pushing them. Talk a little bit about the goaltending right now.
Sure. I think goaltending has always been strong for us. Andy Scheib and Jason Horstman have played most of the games since they were freshmen until this year. They are both seniors this year. We'll hate to see them go. Our third goaltender is a kid named Christian Gaffey, and he's a transfer from University of Minnesota Duluth. So he'll obviously push those two for some game time. So I believe we're very, very solid in the goal. Now it's a matter of them doing the job in a game situation.
And let's work our way out then. You talked a little bit about the fact that you've got 3 of your top 6 defensemen are freshmen. How are you sitting on the blue line?
Again, I think that's a strength of our team. Defense and goaltending, we'll make sure that we're in every single game. Right now you've got A.J. Miller, Brad Denny. They'll be top guys that are returning. Bob Marks is a sophomore that is a tremendous hockey player. Came from us from Topeka, Kansas. Those 3 will be our top 3 with Mike Walter trying to work his way into the lineup. And then we've got 3 freshman defensemen that are very good, and they really bring about more physical play, and that's one of the weaknesses that we had last year. We sometimes got out muscled, So we tried to get a couple guys that would play physical and win some battles in the corner, win battles in front of the net, and I believe we got that in our freshman defensemen.
And then looking at the forwards, you know, the ones that pop out, obviously you've got Austin Belko, who was all-conference last year, Kevin Wentland, one of your top scorers the last couple of years. You guys have proven that you can put the puck in the net. Now you've got that depth maybe to go with that at the forward position.
Correct, and I think right now we've got Austin Belko with Nick Golano and Kevin Wentland, and they'll be a scoring threat every time they're on the ice. Belko is a all-conference player, like you said, and Wentland's an MIAC honorable mention player. So we've got good experience on that line. Both are goal scorers. Golano's a great addition. Golano had a hat trick in the red-white game playing with those two. So we'll leave those three together to begin with. On another line, and I won't even say first or second because they're both very, very good lines. Bobby Thompson is centering Michael Hill and Judd McGlasson. And Judd is a sophomore that played with us for half a season last year. Michael Hill is a Division I transfer from Fairbanks, and Michael had over 65 points in 43 games in his last year of juniors in the North American League. So we're very, very excited about that. And then we've got another line that is every bit as good with Nick Nagel and Nick Gorup. Those two are returning. They played together as we went through, and that line should be very effective as well.
You know, let's talk a little bit about the leadership of this team. We talk a lot about the 16 juniors, so obviously you have that experienced leadership. But team voted for captains, and Brad Fasaro was named the captain of the team with Brad Denny as one of the assistant captains, and then Nick Gorup. Does that surprise you at all in their selections? No,
not at all, because Brad is a workhorse. He'll do everything from killing penalties to blocking shots. Everybody sees his stature, he's small, but his heart is huge, and he doesn't back down from anybody. Everybody respects his effort. Everybody respects him as a person. His character is unquestionable, and when he speaks, people listen.
You know, the best part about Brad is he's shorter than I am, and I like that. I think that's, you know, but I think that's really important to note. Like you said, he is small in stature. You see him on the ice, and you can't imagine that, you know, this 5'6", 160-pound individual is going to be a leader of a team. But you put him on the ice, and he's a player, and he's one of those that can do just about everything for you.
Absolutely, and I think it's a funny story is his coach, when I recruited him in juniors, told me he's going to be your captain in 4 years. So I called him back this week and I told him, I'm sorry, you were wrong. It only took 3, you know. But he is just that kind of a human being, and will do anything for anyone, and our players love him to death, and obviously that was a good choice for us.
Bill, before we preview this weekend's hockey showcase, talk about the red-white game. That was last weekend, where your team goes up against one another in kind of a scrimmage format, but it's played like a real hockey game. Your thoughts coming out of that? You had a hat trick in there, so you had to be happy with some offense. Your overall thoughts on that red-white scrimmage?
It's a great opportunity for us to finish tryouts. We had 3 lines on each team, which obviously is too many for our roster, but it gives us a great opportunity to play with real referees on the ice, playing the straight up NCAA rules, not having a scrimmage type atmosphere. There were a lot of people in the stands. I was very excited to see how many people came out to watch, and it just gives them a game atmosphere. What that does for us is gives them a game of experience coming into this weekend, so that we aren't, caught off guard, so to speak, and ready to play. But it was interesting. The line of Wentland, Belko and Golano had 5 goals, and 3 of them were highlight reel goals. It was phenomenal. So we were very excited about it. It worked out really, really well. We definitely found some weaknesses and things that we were doing wrong. It's great to have some video breakdown sessions after that, where if you didn't have a real game type atmosphere, they might use it as an excuse that, it was only a scrimmage, da-da-da-da-da, but, champions don't make excuses, so we used everything we had, and it was a great week of practice because of the red-white game.
You know, one of the changes that is implemented this year that you've got to experience firsthand in the Red White 2 is the 4 officials. You know, you don't want the officials to be noticed in a game, but with 4 of them out there, did you see a difference in the way the game was refereed?
Absolutely, it was awesome. First of all, I think 4 referees don't get in the way as much as 3 referees do, because 3 referees, they're trying to get up and down the ice and get into different positions. With 4 referees, 2 have one end, 2 have the other end, and they stay out of each other's way. So I think there's actually more room for our players to maneuver and do what they need to do with 4 officials than there are with 3. The second thing is, one of the biggest problems that you have with a 3 referee system is most of the Division I, or most of the NCAA rules were set up for Division I hockey, which uses a 4 referee format. Well, it's tough for a linesman to know when he's supposed to have one responsibility and when he's supposed to have another when they're trying to pick up the responsibilities of 4 and do it with 3. So to me, it's going to be a great enhancement to Division III hockey.
Do you anticipate with 4 instead of 3 a tighter game being called, or do you think because there'll be 2 on each end, it might even be looser a little bit?
I don't think it's going to be called any differently, because there was still 2 referees calling the game before. I think there's going to be less mistakes on the little things like offsides, icing, goals that might have gone in when the referee was trying to chase the play down. If it got up ice too quickly and the referee couldn't keep up. I think those are the mistakes that we've seen in the past that we're not going to see in the future. I don't think it's going to affect penalties at all, because we had 2 referees calling penalties in the past.
Right. And if anything, it might make it a cleaner game, because I think the players will know there are eyes on them and things won't get missed, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about this weekend. You kick off the season this weekend at the MIC Showcase up in Blaine. 4th year of this showcase.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what fans, if they decide to go up there, can expect. I mean, last year they played 9 games and all 9 were decided by a goal. Kind of tells a little bit about the conference itself.
Absolutely, and that is exactly what it is. The conference is so tight from top to bottom that you just don't know from night to night. And 9 games, 9 one-goal games last year. I don't expect anything different this year. But I guess what we're looking at is we're looking at a way that we can get off to a good start, not have to deal with negativity right away and things like that. And we've had to deal with that a little bit, where we played really well and we have to go in and say, you played well, but, you know, I want to go in there and say we played well with no buts this year.
You open up with Bethel on Saturday, and then you've got St. John's on Sunday. MIEC hasn't come out with its preseason poll or any of that yet, but talk a little bit about your expectations in the conference. Who are the teams to beat? Who maybe do you see as a dark horse? And make sure you get into St. Mary's in there too.
Absolutely. Well, I picked St. Thomas to be the #1 team. They have most of their guys back, and they've got 2 Division I transfers in this year again. So they're going to be tough to beat, and they have held my #1 spot. I put Gustavus in #2, and I put St. John's in #3. In our poll, I couldn't rank ourselves. So you rank everybody else. I really believe that right now, without getting a whole lot better, we're a 3 or 4 team in the conference. You know, if we get better, I think we definitely can compete with Gustavus. We tied them last year and lost by, well, it was a couple goals, but it was a tight game till the last 4 minutes. And so we can compete with anybody. Our key is going to be, can we score a big goal at the right time? Last year, we played it tight, and then all of a sudden they would get the big goal at the wrong time. I think it's right now, when we get into back-breaking situations, we need to be that one that puts the puck in the net to break their back rather than the opposite.
Let's talk a little bit about the schedule in general. We've talked, you know, the conference schedule is what it is. Talk a little bit about your non-conference schedule. Obviously a very good one when you play a lot of the NCHA teams. I think one of the things that gets forgotten about last year's season is that one of your wins was against the two-time national champion St. Norbert.
That is correct, and you know, we competed in every game, and what we've got to do is make sure we compete in the games where the teams are very good. But we also have to compete every day and take care of business when it's our turn to have the win. And nobody's going to give you a win in any part of the conference or the non-conference, so you've got to make sure that you take care of that. I think our non-conference schedule is going to help us prepare for that very, very well. I mean, you couldn't ask for a tougher way to go. I mean, we play the U.S. national team, which played Minnesota and North Dakota and I think the North Dakota or Bemidji State was a 1-goal game with them, and so that's going to be a tough one. We play Adrian, who's typically a top 10 team in the country. We play St. Norbert again at St. Norbert, who is again 2-time national champion. We play Stevens Point. We play Superior and Scholastica, and then we finally have been trying this since I got here. Got Lake Forest back on our schedule, which to me is really, really important with the number of alumni that we have in Illinois, that we can get something down there to keep them a part of our program.
Well, and Bill, HBC, of course, will do a number of games this year, and we'll be there for Veterans Appreciation Night. That's in early November this year.
I'm very excited about that. I think that's a huge issue with me, and I think that last year we had a great start with it, putting it together at the last minute. This year we've had more time to prepare. I think we have some surprises that will be fun, that will be very honorable to our veterans. It's a night that the veterans can come to our game and get in for free. A portion of the proceeds are going to be given for the maintenance and any repairs needed to Veterans Memorial Park down at Lake Park. So we're really, really looking forward to that night.
Bill, I know as a head coach there are many challenges, but there are also times, many times of where you can look at the success of a former player and feel good about it. And while you did not want to see Danny Wood go, he did sign a pro contract over in England. Tell us about Danny.
Yeah, Danny had a very nice situation. One, he has dual citizenship between England and the U.S. So the team that brought him on didn't have to use one of their imports to sign him because he had citizenship. And Danny has watched those guys play since he was a kid. It's the hometown he grew up in, and it was a dream of his to go back. And when the opportunity came, he came to me and asked me what I thought, and I told him right out, as much as I would love to have him, he may not ever get another opportunity like that coming out of Division III hockey, and that he had to think about it very, very clearly. And he wanted to do it. He had some convincing to do with his parents, I think, but he's a very, very good student, 3.6, 3.7 student, wants to be a dentist. And I told him if it was somebody that I didn't think was going to come back and finish their schooling at some point, I probably might have given him different advice. But I know he'll come back and finish his schooling when his pro contract is over with. But I wish him the best of luck, and we look forward to watching some games online and doing the things that we can do to see him play.
Imagine that, a hockey player who wants to be a dentist.
He's used to knocking him out. Now he's going to put him back in, right?
Yeah.
Before we let you go here, Bill, a lot of people in the community love to come out and watch St. Mary's hockey. What will they expect to see when they come up to the ice arena this year?
I think the biggest thing that they're going to see when they watch us play is we're going to compete hard. We're very, very fast. We play a fun style to watch. It does give me a little bit more gray hair because we get up and go and try to be a little more offensive. But it's a great style to watch. We have really, really nice young men. Good students, and we're very, very proud of them. So I think what you're going to find is a very entertaining night, watching a bunch of really fine young men do their best to try to turn our program back to what it used to be and be playoff bound.
All right, Bill Moore, men's hockey coach, thanks for being on the Cardinals Nest. Good luck this weekend and, of course, throughout the year.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
And we'll get you back on as well. Stay tuned. Donnie and I will be back. We'll recap the previous week in St. Mary's sports right here on HBC Channel 25.
You know, we're doing things in bus magazines and the newspapers and things like that, and it's just like we seemed like we needed a different media, and we thought, you know, TV, perfect. Laura, she is awesome. She came out the first time. She was very, very personable, tends to your needs. I mean, anything that you needed, she was right there. I literally, seriously, have been wanting to make more commercials just because it was such a great, fun process. I would recommend HBC to anybody.
Call Laura for details on how to get a free commercial for your business. So you know how some cable companies have these bundle deals where if you purchase their TV, telephone, and internet together, you save? At HBC, we're taking it one step further. Get your TV and phone service through HBC, and we'll give you internet absolutely free. That's right, free. And you still save money. Some packages can save you up to $660 a year, and it's all backed by our 30-day guarantee. The best part? Free internet is available to all customers, new and existing. Go to hbci.com to see which free internet package is right for you or call 888-474-9995.
We're a small town store. Everything relies on our internet, our pumps, our registers, everything. So we need somebody that is willing to go that extra mile for us. Jill is awesome. She is very personable. When we call them, they react to us as if we are top on their list. And to me, that is number one. I've had excellent service.
Call Jill and find out what excellent business service is like.
And we're back here on the Cardinals Nest to recap the previous week in St. Mary's athletics. Before we do though, Donnie, first of all, Coach Moore, always a terrific guest. We had talked about Veterans Appreciation Night up at the men's hockey game. That'll be November 9th, and it's a 7:30 start, and that'll be right here on HBC.
Right, and it's a great night, and I know that Coach Moore talked about starting it last year, and I know this year it's going to be bigger and better, and it is very important to him, and it's very important to our community as well, and it's a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to hopefully a win against Hamlin.
And we should mention too, women's hockey does not start this weekend though. They're practicing.
Oh, actually, they start this weekend.
Okay.
They're on the road.
On the road.
They go to St. Norbert on Friday, and then Concordia, Wisconsin on Saturday. So Coach Manner's team is putting the final touches on their preseason, and they'll hit the road to Schwabenon on Friday night.
And I believe he's scheduled to be our guest next week here on the program.
He'll be here.
We'll feature women's hockey then. Donnie, we'll get to volleyball later. They had a really heartbreaking loss the other night. We'll touch on that later. But I want to point out that this past weekend, it was the 5K in support of Sabrina Bushlack, who was the volleyball player critically injured over the summer in the car accident. And that 5K, almost more people came out for that than there are students at St. Mary's.
Yeah, it was it was a really very emotional day. Sabrina showed up for that and was the starter in the race, and actually walked the entire 5K course with the volleyball team. Strong as the New Beautiful was the name of the the race, and I think it says a lot about the St. Mary's community. You get more than 600 people to turn out for one of their own is pretty special. There were a lot of alums, especially volleyball alums, that came back to support Sabrina, and I think that it really does say a lot about St. Mary's and about our community and how we support our own. And it was great to see Sabrina and that smile that she has on her face, and it was a very special time for them. And again, Sabrina hopefully will be back on campus this weekend with St. Mary's volleyball playing their final game of the season on Saturday against Gustavus. It's senior day, and she'll be back for that as well.
All right, so we'll touch on volleyball a little bit later, but first, Donnie, men's soccer action. They're coming off a nice 2-0 win over McAllister College, though they did lose on senior day, the last home game to St. John's, 3-0.
Yeah, you talk about a very nice win against McAllister. In terms of people that don't remember very well, it was a very nice win. It had been 25 years since we'd beaten McAllister. The year after I graduated, as a matter of fact, was the last time that we beat McAllister. So it was a huge win for Coach Watkins, and really for the program itself, because I think it does make a bit of a statement about where the men's soccer program is and how far they've come. They snapped a 2-game losing streak, as you said. They did lose to St. John's last Saturday, and so they're playing very well. That was a game that they actually put it all together. Matt Graber scored both goals for the Cardinals. Matt's got 4 goals on the season now, and they've both been 2-goal games. So when Matt scores, they score in bunches. But it was a very big win for them, and I think that you talk about watershed moments. That certainly is one for this year. They close out their season on Saturday up at Augsburg with a chance to finish the conference season 5-5, which would be a phenomenal performance by them. And they're looking to get close in on the 500 mark overall. With the win against Augsburg, they'd be 8-9-1, which is an outstanding season for Coach Watkins and his group, especially when you consider. We talk about Coach Moore and all his juniors. We're talking about Coach Watkins and all his freshmen, because he's got a very young team. They graduate 5 from this year's squad, but they've also got a handful of freshmen who have really stepped into roles that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for the next 3 years.
Now, you know Coach Watkins pretty well. Does he talk to his team about some of those losing streaks? I mean, does he want them to be aware of that so that they understand the significance of what they're doing, or doesn't he want that?
As a matter of fact, I think he probably talked about it after it happened. He might have needed my text to say it had been 25 years,
Right.
but I think that is important. It's important to understand McAllister is has been the cream of the MIAC crop for a number of years. And I think it's important for these young kids to understand the significance of what they accomplished and not necessarily rest on their laurels of doing that, but to realize that, you know what, you can play with the best there is, and you are making a statement for St. Mary's soccer. So I don't think it's necessarily a negative that we hadn't beat them in so long, but more so the positive, you know what, we're heading in the right direction, and this is a great team, and we just knocked them off.
Yeah. Donnie, the women's team just closed out its home season with senior night. They lose that one 5-1, and now this weekend their final game of the season.
Yeah, they close out at Augsburg on Saturday along with the men. They've got the 3 o'clock game. Senior night, as we talk, is always an emotional time. Kate Rivers and Miranda Cole and Sloan Kuramoto, playing their last home collegiate game. St. Mary stayed right with them for the first half. McAllister, again, and we talk about the men, McAllister women are always up at the top of the conference standings, and they're a very solid team. It was a 1-0 game heading into halftime, and McAllister's depth and their offensive ability was just too much, and it ended up being a 5-1 game. But Leah Irwin picked up her first collegiate goal, which was obviously nice to see. They need in the off season. Obviously, I think the biggest thing for that team is they need to find some offensive punch. They need to find a go-to player that's going to be a goal scorer for them. They just have not offensively had the firepower that they need to compete with some of these teams. We talk about it a lot. Miranda Halling can stop every shot there is, but if you don't score a goal, you're not going to get anything better than a tie for your efforts. So they need to start putting the ball in the net a little bit more. They're creating chances every game they're in. I talked to Coach Cassidy, and they say that they're in these games and they're creating opportunities. They just have to finish on them.
And finally, Donnie, this week in volleyball action, an absolute heartbreaker on Wednesday night right here on HBC. Playoff implications as St. Mary's needed 2 wins to close out the season. They have their last game this upcoming Saturday against Gustavus, but they also needed to beat Carleton there on Wednesday night. And it looked great at the start, jumped out to a 2-0 lead, but then Carleton just came alive starting in that 3rd set. Took the next 3 to come away with the 3-2 win.
Yeah, and it was, you talk about heartbreakers. It was one of those matches that really, talk about a seesaw affair. We dominate the first 2 sets. Carleton comes back and wins a pair of 25-18 sets to send it into the 5th. We've got a 9-8 lead in the 5th set, and Carleton rattles off, goes on a 5-1 run to take a 13-10 lead, and they just didn't look back to win 15-11. And unfortunately, along with the loss, it did eliminate St. Mary's from playoff contention. I had talked to Coach Lester, and they really, starting with last Saturday's match, against Hamlin, they were in playoff mode because they needed to win those matches if they had any chance. And they knew it was on the line and came out firing those first 2 sets, but just couldn't keep up that pace for that 3rd set.
That was the best that I had seen Carissa Hahn play, and also Megan Lyson. Yeah,
Megan Lyson had a career day with 17 kills, and that was great for her. She didn't want to wait till senior day to have her career night. She did it the match before, but a great night for her, and she's had a great career here at St. Mary's.
But Donnie, and you know what I'm talking about. You were there. That number 13, Jessa Yuso for Carleton. She took over in the last 3 sets.
She's a solid player, and that was certainly the difference. They've got some very talented individuals and could go very far in the conference playoffs.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's Cardinals Nest. Be sure to tune in next week. We'll have Terry Manor on the program. He's the head women's hockey coach, and we'll feature women's hockey, which starts this weekend, along with the men who are in the MIAC Showcase. All right, thanks for watching the Cardinals Nest here on HBC Channel 25.